Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea with TPS, informal conversations with thought leaders in India and the world. Today, we celebrate our 100th episode, for which we have one of the most important thought leaders of the world, Dr. Mohamed Elbaradei. He won a Nobel Prize for Peace in 2005 after having served the India International Atomic Energy for several years. He has built a reputation for himself as a peacemaker, a peace lover, and he practically turned the world into peace by, first of all, promoting nuclear power for civilian purposes, and secondly, safeguarding the world from nuclear danger. After that, he was for a short while vice president of Egypt at a very critical time in history, but perhaps he did not like politics too much and therefore he came back to Vienna. So we are here with Dr. Elbaradei. I had the great privilege of working with him at the IAEA, and more than that, we played golf every weekend. So we had a fair exchange. I would give him some golf tips, and then he'll share his wide wisdom and intuition and everything with us. It was a great pleasure. And so we are delighted to have Dr. Elbaradei on this 100th episode of Tea with TPS. Welcome, Dr. Elbaradei.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Sreenivasan. Again, Srini, it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you very much for your very kind introduction. But what's really important for me is the friendship that we have developed over the years. And as you said, not only in the corridors of the International Atomic Energy Agency, but more importantly, in the golf course. And I was your junior by far. I never really caught up with you on your handicap, but it was a great pleasure just to be able, as human being, to talk about issues, not as an Egyptian, but just basically as human beings who are getting older and would like to see a better world for their children and next generation. And that's still what we are doing right now.
Absolutely. How is your golf now? Are you playing?
Sorry?
Are you playing golf?
I stopped after you left in revolt.
Thanks. But of course, during the pandemic, it was not possible. But then we have started again.
No, I haven't been playing for a while. No.
Okay. All right, Mohamed, we have chosen the topic for today, a wide and broad topic. The world, the state of the world. The presidents of the United States talk about the state of the union. So with your great wisdom and experience, I'd like to explore with you how you look at the world. And I'll tell you a little story. A very wise man was asked, describe the world today in one word. Then he said, good. Then he was asked, please say it in 2 words. Then he said, not good. So I don't know if we had 3 words, what he would have said. But now we have no limitation of words. So please tell us how you describe the world today.
Well, I wish I could say, that the world is in good shape, but it is not. And I have been thinking about that a lot, actually, with Ida, my wife, and friends, whether this is just a function of getting old and pessimistic, or is it really an objective assessment? But the more you go around, look at things, it's not really great, Srini, in any way. A major fundamental issues. I think the first issue I would mention is the inequality. The inequality that is becoming obscene. We have seen it with COVID. We have seen it with the war in Ukraine. We have seen it in, it's now, each to himself, basically. It's a bunker mentality that is developing, which is not what we saw when we were working together, say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's the other issue. So this inequality, it just, people don't understand. It just is, this sense of injustice make people very, very angry. And it's the injustice not only between countries, but within countries, and that is creating a good deal of polarization. I mean, I can't really think of any country right now which is sort of a split down the middle in many ways, and that's something we can talk about, populism, people are just fed up with the system, basically. And this is a fertile ground for with the people who are trying to provide simple solution for complex questions. Populist. Populism is go, and it's not only in the so-called global South. It's in Europe. It's in the U.S. It's in everywhere. But the other issue also, which troubled me a great deal as a lawyer, at least, is that this indifference to the rule of law. The rule of law is there to be broken, basically, and it's particularly broken by the major power in many ways, whether it's the US, whether it's Russia, and the mass small countries, if you like, emerging countries, whatever you call it, that you just have to rely on your own, and so it's an inequality, it's a polarization, it's a absence of the rule of law, and of course the democracy is in a decline everywhere. I mean, we're trying to, every day. When I see yesterday the statement by the Prime Minister of Hungary, for example, basically saying we don't want mixed races, as if we are, tribes coming from different places, and he want to keep Europe pure, pure European Judeo-Christian culture. Well, if that is not racism, what is? Luckily, I mean, he was, but this is just at the heart of Europe. Yeah, maybe the only good news I can see looking around is the young people. The young people right now are saying, we don't trust you. The only ray of hope I see right now is the young people coming to the forefront. I think there is a lot of distrust in the older generation. We haven't really developed, what the kind of world they would like to see. If you look at the climate change, if you look at the arms race, we failed their expectations in many ways, and I think they are coming to the front line. And we saw that in the climate change. We see it in arms control and nuclear disarmament, and I think that's the hope. That is, they should take over, because we haven't done what we should be doing, creating a more.
They're not in a position to take control. That's the problem. So they keep saying, you are doing injustice to us. That's what they keep saying. Right?
Correct. That is correct. And I think maybe it will take them another 5 years, 10 years by, law of attrition. They will have to take over, and
they have to come to irresponsible positions.
Exactly, because if you look at the world, it's really governed by octogenarians right now in many ways. I have nothing against octogenarians. I'm one, but we should gracefully, pass the baton to the younger people. They have, it's a different generation. I see that with my children. I see it with my grandchildren. They think differently. They have a lot of better values, I should say, than we are. They are race blind. They are blind to all the so-called differences between us. And
what they say is, you have destroyed the world, and so we have to bring it back.
Exactly.
And the next generation will not be grateful to you if you don't do that.
Exactly. So I hope we can just not destroy the world completely before they take over. I think that's my only hope, right?
We just save it for them.
Just save it for them. Whatever it is we have right now, just leave it for them. Yeah, to fix.
How about the nuclear danger? You're the greatest specialist on that. How do you see it? After the Ukraine war started, do you think the nuclear, the clock, the moving towards midnight? Has it moved even an inch towards that situation? The the Holocaust clock, as it were, the nuclear. Has it come closer when a permanent member of the Security Council says that I'm likely to use nuclear weapons? That's a new stage in the situation, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is really. I mean, we have two existential dangers, Srini: the climate change and the nuclear holocaust. And we so far we are doing very little about either of them. We saw for one of them we just almost lots of talks about climate change, but we are not putting our money where where our mouth is.
No, radically something will turn up. It will be a change. After all, nature will take its own course, etc. And people think that there is nothing we can do about it. That's the kind of approach.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one, of course, is the nuclear. And I mean, this is the first time since the 1960s when we see a weapon state, one of the major weapon states, saying, "Don't mess up with us, or we will use nuclear weapons," basically.
Right. And this was just a few months ago, all the 5 permanent members said this should not be fought, cannot be won. Remember,
exactly. We are, frankly, I'm talking about myself. I'm sick and tired of all this rhetoric. Cannot be fought, must never be fought, cannot be won. Thank you, but what are you doing about it? If we still have 13,000 nuclear weapons, we still have 2,000 nuclear weapons on high alert, which, according to some of the experts, like Senator Sam Nunn, for example, who would tell me that the US president or the Russian president would have 7 to 8 minutes to respond to a purported nuclear attack. That's less than having the time to have a cup of coffee, and what is worse, that in the US system, at least, it's one person who can make that decision. And you remember when Mr. Trump was in power, when the Speaker of the House and everybody else was absolutely frightened, that in his state of mind, he might order a nuclear weapon. And, it's really, it's a touch and go, the way I see it, and yet it's also a very discriminatory system. So you saw the way NATO acts right now. If you are part of NATO, you are protected. But if you are the unlucky ones outside NATO, outside the 30 countries or outside the weapon state, you are on your own. You are on your own.
That's why Finland and Sweden, etc., are wanting to get into NATO. And they were the most neutral countries in Europe. But generally, Mohamed, Europe is kind of leaderless at the moment, don't you think? After Angela Merkel left, Macron does not have majority in his parliament. UK is in shambles. Germany is like that, and France. And so there is a kind of leaders vacuum in Europe. And at a time when NATO is being threatened by Russia, and President Biden is, half there, half not there, is not very clear in his approach to China, approach to Russia. So there is a certain amount of leadership crisis in the West, I think. Do you agree with that?
I think leadership crisis in the West, in the East, everywhere, in my view. I mean, I don't see the kind of leaders, the kind of vision, coming out that give you comfort or give people comfort and trust. We don't have them. It's basically what is in it for me and what is in it for me until the next election, And lots what you read, it's just like kindergarten, frankly. It just sad, as I said. No, Europe, of course, Europe is in disarray. There's no really leadership, but we are focusing more on confrontation. And we are focusing more on confrontation with the nuclear weapon and basically saying, ha, you see, I have now this hypersonic missile that could destroy you in 2 minutes. But then if some country like DPRK or Iran are suspect of having nuclear weapon, this is the most serious threat to the world. I don't want to see anybody having nuclear weapons. But what moral authority, the weapon states have to go after North Korea even, or Iran? It's basically, we are the good guys, you are the bad guys. But is
They
that,
have to reform themselves. That
yeah,
is what it
but
was.
is that a standard? Is that a norm of law? Either, that, and who is to judge who is good and who is bad? And if we feel insecure, like North Korea, like Iran, and I'm not giving any justification for them, but if you feel insecure, what would you do other than doing like the big boys? The big boys are relying on nuclear weapons. You have in India, you have done the same. I mean, you preach disarmament for 100 years. Rajiv Gandhi, and beautiful master plan for disarmament, and then you saw that you have been treated second class citizen, frankly, because you don't have nuclear weapons. Then you decided to join the herd. And once
Because if you want to speak about disarmament, you must have something in your hand. Because when Rajiv Gandhi presented that action plan, nobody
Yeah.
listened to him because he had nothing to give up.
Yeah,
so,
no, that
so
is
what is he
correct.
talking about disarmament? So
And
now when India speaks about disarmament, there is certain credibility there, don't you think?
yeah, no, and once you develop nuclear weapon, you and Pakistan, you have been treated differently. You see, let us face it. The benign neglect is gone, and now you are treated different. Whether they like you, they don't like you, but you are a credible partner, and you are a credible partner because you have nuclear weapon. That is what message then are we sending to the rest of the world, Srini? You know,
But
So
in
it
between,
is.
there were some good signs. Remember when Obama spoke in Prague about a world without nuclear weapons? He said, of course, not my lifetime, not now, etc., etc. At least there was some hope. And we had people like Kissinger, etc., also saying that we could now look forward to a nuclear weapon-free world. But that is
Correct.
completely reversed now, unfortunately.
Complete, completely. I mean, Obama, in Prague was great. I mean, at least listening to what he's saying. Kissinger and company, and Schultz and Sam Nunn and Bill Perry, couple of
Yeah.
times said nuclear weapons are hazardous, are not effective. All this, even rhetoric, is gone now. What we are
We used
basically
to talk
hearing.
about global zero, you remember? There was a big
Yeah.
movement of global zero. Now nobody is talking about it.
No. Everybody's talking about now. I can have hypersonic missile that can destroy you in 1 second, and you will not be able to catch it. No, but I will develop.
He had a video show.
Yeah, yeah,
How he can
and
hit major cities in the United States. He had a held a
exactly.
show saying that he can do it. So
And the worst thing in all this is that with cyber manipulation, and that is great worry for me. The command and control can easily be manipulated by cybersecurity, by hacking. So we are sitting under a Damocles sword. We live under a Damocles sword, But again, we pretend that everything is okay. Not everything is not okay at all. Everything is not okay at all. I mean, you saw that in the reaction to the Ukraine war. It's a horrible war. It's a whole war in the middle of Europe, but a lot of Schadenfreude in the rest of the world. A lot of saying you deserve what you're getting. That is not. I saw your foreign minister saying not every European problem is a world problem.
yeah, yeah.
And not every world problem is a European problem, and that's very true. Underlying this whole good talks, people feel that some are more equal than other, and that is not the way we can build a world. Again, I come back to inequality.
No, take this, Mohammed, the Sri Lankan crisis. In any other
Yeah,
situation, there would have been a humanitarian effort to save that country. At the
yeah,
moment, nobody is bothered because all the rich countries in the world are focused on their own problem, worried about Putin. And nobody seems to even care for what happens. We used to think that now there cannot be a famine anywhere because after all the world is one and things will change. But now there could be a famine in Sri Lanka tomorrow and nobody will care. That is the
No,
situation.
absolutely. I mean, look at the media. Well, the Western media, at least, and 90% is the Ukrainian war, is the Ukrainian refugees. There are 20 million Yemenis, people in Yemen, who are going through a famine. In Sri Lanka, the whole situation is horror. The only people who talk about that is International Committee of the Red Cross, and the Pope.
They can't cope with it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically,
The Pope does not have an army. So,
no, but the Pope is the best politician to my mind right now. At least he's talking, conscience. He's talking humanity.
look
But
at
nobody
what he
else.
did in Canada. What he
Yeah,
said in Canada was
yeah,
astonishing.
absolutely. No, the Pope is a great guy to me. I hope what he's doing right now will continue after him. But I know there is a lot of revolt against him also, even in the Catholic Church. So,
True, because he is upsetting the hierarchy in the Catholic.
exactly. But you're right. And I remember I said, at my Nobel lecture, if I wish to see, the same reaction when somebody is die in Darfur like somebody die in Vancouver. This is exactly what I said. And that was like 17 years ago. And it's getting worse. If you die in Darfur today, or put it Sri Lanka, put it Yemen, well, it's too bad. But if you die in Europe, that's a different story, And Europe are competing now to receive the Ukrainian refugees. They are one of us. They have open arms. But if you are black, if you are coming from the Middle East, you come with disease, and we want to keep you outside. We will make sure you can even drown in the Mediterranean, but don't come to us. That is really is. I mean, I think our major issues right now, Srini, is an issues of values. And issues of values. We are losing the basic values, like the human race is one. I mean, basic stuff. That we should care about each other. That the human solidarity. That is gone. Each one is now going back into its own little tribe. Nationalism also is becoming horrible. I think disease that penetrating many countries. Unfortunately, I see it even in India right now. At least it's good to be proud about your nationality, but there is a difference between being national and being inclusive. I think that's everywhere. When I see,
India's tradition, independent fight for independence, for example. There's
yeah,
no talk about you and me. Because
no,
as a nation, we fought and won freedom. But
yeah,
unfortunately, after that, these Fissiparous tendencies have come up. So that's sad. But the Indian Constitution, I think, is strong enough to withstand that, I think, and
yeah.
also our public opinion. So this may be a temporary phase, I would say.
I would hope so. I mean, because frankly, India for me has always been, the shining city on a hill. When everybody was saying you cannot have democracy in a poor country, I always say, look at India. When everybody say you cannot have democracy with illiteracy, I say, look at India. So you have you have a very more important role model, than you think. And so whatever you do nationally is not just within the confine of India. It's a message, again, you are sending to the rest of the world. I mean, the US right now is two countries. People are saying there is the United States of Europe, but not the United States of America right now. I mean, and but this is, again, it's values. We sort of try to make every effort to see what separates us. Is that a religion? Is it ethnicity? Is it language? And we try to minimize what we have in common, that we are basically human beings, have the same hope, same aspiration, same what we want for our kids, and but that is, we are back into, I don't know, we are back into a situation when is not really make me very optimistic. Look at globalization.
Yeah,
Globalization. We talked about it a lot. I mean, you and I spent our life, talk about globalization, believe in globalization. Think we need to act together because that's the only way to get progress, prosperity, and poverty, all that sort of thing. Now, nobody want to talk about globalization. I mean, in fact, all
it's
the
talking
efforts.
about deglobalization.
Exactly. In
Yeah.
fact, all the effort now by the US is to disengage from China, for example, or to disengage from anybody else. Make America great. Let us produce everything in the US. And the messages that are and then you see the Russians saying, "Don't mess up with us. We'll use nuclear weapons." And the messages an average person in an average country is getting, that the world is in a horrible shape. Basically, I have to rely on myself. I can't rely on the so-called human solidarity or human unity of human race or global. So we are, and I come back what you said. There is no vision. There's no leadership. Nobody is standing up to that. Nobody is saying what you are saying is wrong. Everybody is going with the tide. Everybody is going with what would make them popular. Popular for what? They might win a battle, but we will all lose the war, Srini. We'll all lose the war. And as I said, I don't.
Is it also because multilateralism has collapsed in the UN, particularly because of the US? And therefore, everyone feels that now we don't belong to any particular position. Everybody feels that this world has to be reordered. And each one is trying to get a position such a way that in the reordered world, they will get some kind of primacy.
Yeah.
And that is why groups are not functioning enough together. People are not able to agree on anything. Even the Glasgow Agreement and all that is already there. They are not caring for it. So the weakness of the multilateral system and the UN may have created this kind of a need for each one to struggle very hard and put the other guy down in order to get prominence.
I don't know what led to the other, whether because of the UN has been, or the multilateral system has been completely marginalized, that people rely on themselves, or because people rely on themselves, they did not try to help the multilateral system. But whatever, there is a symbiotic relation between them, I think. There's a mindset in many countries that I have to rely on myself. It's a zero-sum game. Basically, I don't need to cooperate. I can win and the other can lose. But if I look to the UN right now, I mean, or the multilateral system, you feel very sad. It's completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant, has no resources, has no authority. And how could you, and then of course, you have this veto, and use and abused of the veto system. When Russia was able to stop any action, not even, just to ceasefire, say. I mean, a logical thing would have, let us have a ceasefire, we saw that in 50 years and talk. They did block that. But you remember, until the 1990, after the dissolution of Soviet Union, everybody talked about reforming the UN. That was 30 years ago. And we haven't moved one iota because, again, no, if Germany will become member of Security Council, I have to be. That's Italy. If India will become a member, well, I have to be. That is Pakistan. And as a result, we have a dysfunctional system. I have been saying this for at least 10, 15 years. any Security Council that does not have India as a permanent member, is not real.
Not
This
serious.
is it's not. This is 1/6 of the world. That you cannot just say. And to see the 5 members are all the ones with the nuclear weapons. What is the message? I have to get nuclear weapon and maybe go into a couple of wars so people will take me seriously. No, it's not. Nuclear. The UN right now is, and we need a completely, as you said, Srini, we need a completely new order. But I don't think that world new order. I mean, Biden keeps saying we need to build up back better. But I don't think we need to build back better. We need to start from scratch. There is nothing really good going on right now. We need to start.
During the pandemic, we found that no country could rely on anybody else.
No.
That could have been controlled if there was a Security Council decision to take charge of this, as it happened in the case of HIV, AIDS, and Ebola, etc. But since the Chinese were suspected to be behind it, the Chinese blocked the entire action. So each one of us was running around in circles to find a solution. There was no international approach to the whole pandemic.
No, correct. And when I see, Europe, where I'm sitting now, we are 87% fully vaccinated, and booster. I took 4 shots. Yes. In Africa, it's 13%. I mean, it is obscene. When I see, like, I think 50 or 60 billionaires own as much as half the world population. I think 3.5 or 4 billion. If you're coming from the outer space and you look at that, you say this is a world that has gone mad. That is not.
The US, 1% of the people hold 90% of the wealth of the world.
That's not sustainable. That is not sustainable. But we need leaders, to say we are on the wrong track. But they're not saying that. So again, I come back and saying the only hope I have is the younger generation. I look at my grandchildren, as I'm sure you do with the same grandchildren. They are the hope. They are the hope. I mean, they have much better values. They have much better perspective. I mean, they care about each other. They don't discriminate on the basis of anything. And right now, and I don't want to appear pessimistic, but all I am hoping, praying for is let us not just go and destroy the world, as Rajiv Gandhi once mentioned, completely destroy it. Let us just keep it until hopefully the younger generation take over and they have the tools, the IT, the artificial intelligence. I mean, this is also the fear right now. I have 2 amazing tools. This is, artificial technology, which people now saying they could have conscience. So we have a lot of amazing tools, but we don't have the values. We don't have the ethics to manage these tools.
Harari has been saying that the machines will take over and humans will become worthless.
That is not that, but it's. I look at this quantum computing. I look at the artificial intelligence, how much our life is changing. I mean, you and we have become almost like dinosaurs with the technology.
You cannot operate the artificial.
I have to rely on my granddaughter to help me with the technology, and she's 11. But for her, technology is just like part of life. For us, and this is going even faster right now, Srini. My worry that we have tools that if we don't manage properly, it will even add to the danger we are facing.
Very, very true. How about your own region, Mohamed? Well, recently Biden was in the Middle East. He went to Saudi Arabia. He went to Israel. He also met the Palestinian leader. What is the chemistry there? People generally say that Biden failed in his mission. Is that your assessment?
My own region is in a worse shape than any other region right now. It's it's full of wars, full of polarization, full of confusion, full of inequality. And we have on top of that, we have on top of that this major issue which we never settle, which is a relationship between religion and governance, and that is something the whole Muslim world, in my view, had never really settled. How much religion could be into politics, and what is the impact of religion into politics, and how you balance that with the notion that all citizens are equal. We never settled that, and the complication, of course, that everybody, and I'm sure in Hinduism and everywhere else, everybody has his own interpretation of what religion is, or what it should do. So this is something which is splitting actually the Arab world and the Muslim world between the so-called Islamist. You don't know exactly what they want, and the so-called liberal, secular, whatever you call it. But there is this split, and lost in translation is the welfare of people, is healthcare, is poverty, but we are very busy fighting each other. The other thing, of course, is that the Palestinian issue. I mean, this has been, again, for people who have followed that for the last 50 years, there was a parameter, but this is gone. The American who was sort of the teddy bear who is looking after at least the basic issues, they sort of now decided that this is not on the radar screen. It doesn't really impact their election. So when Biden went to the region, I mean, the Palestinian issue was of zero interest to him. All he did is give $100 million to a hospital somewhere and say, well, I'll give you some money, but don't think about independence or dignity or apartheid practice or anything, because will take a long time. Yeah, this will take a long time. That's what he said. It will take a long time, but let's not talk about that now. Let us make sure that Israel will become part and parcel of the Middle East. But what they don't understand, that governments are making agreements with Israel, but people are not. There's a lot of anger, under the surface in the Middle East. It's a sense of humiliation, sense of injustice, that a whole people is deprived of the right just to live in dignity, independence, what have you. And then you have the region now sort of divided between pro-America, pro-Iran,
pro-China,
pro-China, correct. And the concept of what is really the national security in that region is completely gone. If you ask anybody, who are you? What is your national security? You'll hear 10 different answers. People are saying, let's have a Middle East NATO. Others saying, let's have an Arab grouping as we used to have since 1945, the so-called Arab League. Let us join the Chinese. No, let us be with the Iranian. If we are Shia, they would help us as minority. So it's total confusion. And as I said, in the middle of that, the ones who are completely lost are the people. All the ills are there: inequality, poverty, wars, polarization. And nobody cares right now. I mean, until lately, until the Russian-Ukraine war, the US made it very clear the Middle East is not really important for us right now. We need to deal with the big elephant, which is China. But how to deal with the big elephant also is, let us try to, or with Russia, try to weaken them, not try to cooperate, not try to say we cannot get them out of, I mean, they are there. China will be the largest economy, I think, in 10, 15 years. But instead of saying globalization, cooperation, some rules of coexistence, no. And, what, you remember Graham Allison, book about Thucydides' trap, when Sparta and Athens we're doomed to fight each other. And he is afraid that if we continue in this direction, we'll end up with a global war.
We'll have the same track.
With global war. But so we are, what I see, all this leader right now. I mean, I saw Biden basically saying, our focus right now is to downside China, and our tool is democracy. But then he will not, or the US will not say a word about all the abuse of democracy in many parts of the world. In many parts, all they will say, we are concerned. Well, thank you very much. So as everybody is concerned. But so they are losing credibility, frankly, and democracy alone, even if it's not the solution. There are two different systems right now, and the other system, unfortunately, is taking advantage, is taking the lead right now. More countries are saying, an autocratic system maybe can deliver faster, which is not true. But that's the feeling right now. I don't think we have to focus on regime change and all this sort of junk which failed in the past. Which, by the way, when you talk to the Middle East about the Ukraine war, there's a lot of cynicism. Everybody will tell you, how about Iraq? How about Afghanistan? Now are you talking to us? Now are you talking to us about rules? So all what you have done in the past come back to haunt you, and don't expect people to come immediately to say, yes, there is a violation of territorial integrity. But you have done the same, starting since Vietnam. So what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If you want to have a system, it have to apply to everybody, Srini, and that's not happening right now.
No, but there is some liberalization in Saudi Arabia, and they are working not only with the United States but also with China and Russia. So that change, is it for any good? Is there a little more diversification of relationships?
It's good, but I think we still need, I personally, we still need democracy. I don't think, no matter how you go around it, there is no really stability in the long run without a democratic system. And that democracy, for some reason, is escaping the Middle East. I mean,
so you're disappointed with the Arab Spring because it didn't bring about any more democracy than there was.
Our last hope, the Arab Spring happened because people felt the injustice, felt the frustration. This is no different from the European Spring in 1848. Exactly the same. I was looking at it, exactly the same. People are frustrated against the people in power, so they revolted. And they lost. I mean, they were suppressed, as in the Arab Spring. Again, exactly. The good news, at least, that in Europe, in 25 years, they succeeded. It took time, but they succeeded. I mean, they changed the feudal system. People have become more participating in their governance. And the Arab Spring lost, and the first phase, I would say, lost because people were not organized. Like in Egypt, we got rid of Mubarak and we thought that's the end. But Mubarak was just one person. The system was still alive and kicking, and they came back. And in every Arab Spring, including even Tunisia, which was our last hope, we lost it a couple of days ago, at least for now. So until, it's good to have modernization. It's good to have education. I mean, to me, education is key. You need to educate people before you get to build an institution, you get to understand the meaning of democracy, and education is still key. But modernization and diversification, as I said, in Saudi Arabia is good. We should not go back into, the two split system, between the West and China, or the West and Soviet Union. And there again, I think India, has a key role to play, because you are you should be a pole on your own. You are a pole on your own, but you should make that clear where you stand. And you have a lot, as I mentioned in a talk to some.
Lecture. Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, that you have a fantastic role to display the value of democracy. You have a fantastic role to display the value of peace, and non-violence, and you have a fantastic role to play in cooperation and not just siding with one side or another. Right now, I'm not see people at least not see that very clearly yet where you stand with Squad in particular. I mean, to me, with Squad in particular, people get the impression that you're taking one side and it's because it's against China. But my feeling, India, should be, as I mentioned before, should be a representative of the global South with all the ills and hurts and aspiration of the global side of the global South. And so you are a hope. You are a hope for a lot of people, Srini, even if you don't know that. We are a hope of a lot of people. And I hope, as I said, I have a lot, as I said, maybe I'm biased vis-a-vis India because India is very dear to my heart. But I would hope that you will perform the role that people are expecting from you.
Well, we have been successful in many ways, technology, industrialization. Of course, the pandemic was a big shock, like everybody else. And therefore we had a setback. But I think India is very much on the road to recovery. And we have a prime minister with all criticism against him. But he is very determined and he is very much interested in the ordinary people. He focuses on toilets for the people, focuses on gas cooking, very fundamental things he gives attention to. And that is what has made him popular, more than his ideology. And that is a good sign, because that kind of thing people are recognizing as valuable for the people.
Correct. No, I fully agree. I mean, I was looking at, for example, technology, science and technology in India. It's very impressive. In 1961, you developed this All India Institute of Technology before we even know what IT is about. That is so. No, you had, and you see all the Indian overseas, how they are performing. So,
San Jose was built by the Indians.
Exactly. And education is still probably have some problem and you need to focus on it. And I agree. I mean, people care about concrete performance and less ideology. I mean, if I have an idea or I have a modest proposal to India, focus on delivery and less on ideology. And that applies to everybody else. Ideology is not really...
The problem is for votes, you need the ideology.
Yeah, exactly. Ideology has been an ill, I think, that a disease that we human beings have been having. You can have your own ideology, you can have your own belief, you can have your own religion, you can have whatever. But it should be, you should not exclude others, or you should not think that you are more superior than other. And tolerance is we are very fragile species, and tolerance and modesty is key to our survival, I think. We need to
Can we remove the fears of the others? See, like, for example, on Kashmir, Article 370 was a vital thing to do. Still, Kashmir cannot be different from the others. So what they did to correct that was considered to be a threat to a whole human, set of people in India. That was not the purpose. So there is also that suspicion that something is being done for the constitution or for the country. It's immediately interpreted it as against one religion or the other. That is really the problem in India. So even the good that we do, the government does, is not fully understood or appreciated.
No, probably not. You have to do a better explanation. I mean, judging by what I see, the reaction, say, in the Middle East or the Muslim country, you need a much better explanation, I think, Srini. I mean, tolerance and explanation from both sides, dialogue. I mean, we have a war right now, like going on for 4 months, and people are not talking to each other. How on earth are we going to settle it? If we don't talk? I mean, talking, we keep talking at the national level, we have to keep talking at the international level. That's what the whole multilateral system was about. If we don't talk, then we're doomed. Then we are in a bunker. We keep having this bunker mentality, which we see in many places right now.
That's true. That's true. Well, that has been a great experience talking to you and learning from you. I follow your tweets. I know you are very distressed over many things in the world, but you are giving that kind of a guidance to the world, as it were, and that is valuable. So do not think that your opinions are not relevant. They are absolutely relevant. It makes people conscious of the fact that we are not as good as we think.
Correct.
And that, I think, has been a great thing. And so thank you for joining me today. But before we conclude, I would like to introduce you to a young person. We have been talking about the new generation and its problems.
Sure.
The institution which was so excited by your being in this program.
It's a pleasure.
And that was an institution called Saint Teresa's College. It's one of the best colleges in India.
Sure.
So we have a young lady from Saint Teresa's College, and she wants to ask you a question. And I know she is as concerned about the new generation as you and I have been. So
Sure.
Priya Polly, a very bright student of Saint Teresa's College, will ask you a question. With that, we'll conclude. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Dr. Elbaradei. I'm Priya Soli from St. Teresa's College, Kerala, India. Thank you for taking a question from me on behalf of the younger generation. We greatly appreciate your contribution to world peace by safeguarding mankind from nuclear danger, for which you have won a Nobel Peace Prize.
Thank you very much.
History has many number of instances of disasters by which the world order has been impacted. Not to go too far back, let me mention the 9/11 terrorist attack, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Any sort of conflict, attack, military action, or war is bound to ruin the resources and human lives massively and upsets the international relations and global peace. As a champion of peaceful uses of nuclear energy and an advocate of peace, what is your opinion on the future of mankind? Do you think the world will return to Mahatma Gandhi's non-violence and peaceful coexistence of nations? Do you envisage that the present world disorder will end and we will have a peaceful world for my generation to develop and flourish?
The future of what, Srini? I didn't.
Future of mankind. She was saying
Future of mankind. Future of mankind.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, sir.
It's great talking to you, first of all, because as I said, you are my only hope, the younger generation. I remember, a couple of years ago, my granddaughter, who is 8 years old right now, and felt that I was treating her elder sister, who is 2 years older, slightly better. And she stood in the middle of the park in Vienna, and she said, "Why are you treating my sister better than me?" And I want an answer. She was 8 years old. She has the confidence to scream in my face in the public place and say, "I want an answer." And at that time, I realized you are the hope. You are the absolute hope. Well, I think the future of humanity is in your hand. It's really in your hand. It's in which direction you want to go. And the key, to my mind, is the mindset that we are just one human race, that we have the same hopes, the same aspirations, irrespective of the so-called superficial differences, color, race, religion. These are, to me, superficial. What we have is this sense of humanity, is that our mission to continue life on earth, decent, dignity for every human being. I have a lot of faith in you, and I think you should learn from our mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, and we apologize for that. But maybe it's a lesson for you to learn of our own mistakes and move forward. Move forward, fixing the existential threats we have. First, climate change. Second, the nuclear arms race. Have a global security system that does not rely on weapons of mass destruction. Make sure that everybody have enough to eat. Make sure that everybody have human dignity. Make sure that we are all equal and we continue to work to be equal human beings, to live together, hopefully, as much as we can in happiness, in content, in sense of decency. I think is absolutely key. We have to be decent. And I think we lost a lot of decency in the last 10 years or so. So it's a great seeing you. I'll be checking on you, and I'm sure you'll be a great leader soon.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. You can see it on her face that she is optimistic that we are. So
thank you very much, Srini. Thank you very much. And the last thing I want to end up is we need to keep the faith. We need to keep the hope. That is what keeps us going. Irrespective of whatever adversity we have, let us keep the faith and keep the hope in our resilience, in our innate human nature.
And thank God for it, that we have that.
Exactly.
So inshallah, we will reach there.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you very much. Pleasure. Thanks.